Hello and welcome to another anime lore and theory video. I'm Shergog, your host, and today we are going to take a closer look at the reign of the 8 great kings and how they had changed the world to this very day and made it also very easy for Ainz to now take over the entire world, like they once did, or at least tried to do. But before we're going to take a closer look at any of this, let me quickly thank my Patreons for supporting this channel, as well as say thanks to all users of the YouTube thanks function for making one-time donations. And with that said, let's get to the topic at hand. The 8 Kings of Greed were and probably still are the most influential players in the New World that they have ever seen, even surpassing Ainz Ooal Gown and his great Tomb of Nezarec in the moment. And they conquered the entire continent in no time, broke the power of the Dragon Lords, and killed an immortal death god. Ironic if you think about it. So today, we will take a look at the impact of their invasion and what is all meant for the New World. And we begin with the end of the era of the dragons, because the power of the Dragon Lords was broken in a titanic war, and many legendary and old Dragon Lords died in it. However, the 8 kings also suffered seemingly enormous losses as well, but were likely able to resurrect themselves and their NPCs with gold. Thanks to the resources from the conquered and occupied regions of the New World, the kings could also replenish their gold reserves each time. However, according to Platinum Dragonlord, his father, presumably the Dragon Emperor himself, did something to them that is hard to forgive. So it might not have been an easy victory at all. And the death also could have been that the Dragon Lords were behind the war. Or, and this is the other side of the medal, that the 8 Greek kings, driven by a lust for power and honoring their name, were actually behind the attack on the dragons, because they stood in the way of conquering the entire New World. Because the son of one of the players, Dacam Hugin, the Elven King, was not exactly a friendly and just ruler, but rather a megalomaniacal and ignorant snob, presumably or perhaps like his father, who then realized, in contrast to his father, way too late, against whom he was actually fighting, and that the undead Overlord, whose children he had tried to touch, would likely have struck fear into the heart of his very father. The 8 great kings were also the ones who helped tier magic to its breakthrough, while the 6 great gods did save humanity from the imminent extinction and helped the theocracy to rise. Their influence was locally limited because they were just 6 players, without seemingly any guild base, so the rest of the world and the rest of the continent were still dominated by the Dragon Lords and the magic of the soul. Tier magic was therefore locally limited and not universally widespread, though we know that it actually did spread and was fought to the population of the New World, that is, to the humans at the very least. But it is said that the 8 kings of Greed, when they conquered the continent, also promoted the spread of tier magic in their realm, whether this was a conscious agenda to magically end the reign of the dragons by replacing soul magic, or wild magic as it is called, with their own magic, tier magic, or whether they simply used a system based on tier magic because the 8 kings only knew and could use tier magic, is not known. However, the impact of this short reign over the United Continent was significant. During this time, tier magic rose to become the dominant form of magic, spreading across the continent and beyond species boundaries. This could simply be a consequence of so many dragons dying and so few remaining who could teach the magic of the soul, or it could be related to a world item, for example 7 colors undivided, or Ouroboros that the 8 great kings used, which then changed the laws of magic that govern and shape this alternate reality to favor tier magic and make it usable. And personally, I consider a combination of both to be quite likely, but again, let me know your opinion on this down in the comment section. And then, the unification of the continent was also not long-lasting, as the 8 kings of avarice destroyed themselves in a devastating civil war, leading to the downfall of their entire once united empire. In the end, a power vacuum remained, and something else. The kings were not universal rulers who reigned deep into every corner of their empire, and did not penetrate all lands and nations equally. While humanity seemingly flourished and tier magic spread across the nameless continent, displacing the ancestral magic of the New World, the magic of the soul, there remained regions untouched, too remote to be reached in such a short time, likely just several years or a decade or two at most, to allow significant exchange between the great empire of the 8 kings and the adjacent or undiscovered nations. For example, the Dwarven Kingdom seemed completely untouched by the conquest of the 8 kings. Hidden behind the forest of Tomb and deep within the mountains of Asalesia, the dwarves seemingly continued their lives as usual, relying on traditional rune magic for another 300 years rather than the tier magic spread by the 8 great kings. This only changed when one of the evil gods laid waste to the capital of the Dwarven Kingdom 300 years later, prompting the Dwarven King to join the 13 heroes. Following this, contact with the young Baharut Empire, already a nation influenced by a young Fluder Paradane and the newly formed Kingdom of re-estize, likely led to widespread adoption of tier magic in the Dwarven Kingdom. And in any case, it took another 200 years for runecraft to be pushed to the brink of oblivion. And even then, Ein Solgon could quickly restore it to its former glory. And therefore there are likely many enclaves on the nameless continent where life continues as it did 600 years ago, when the 6 players who found it slain came to the New World. And please note, these do not necessarily have to be humans or humanoids, like dark elves or rainbow eyes, but it could be all manners of different species, perhaps even heteromorphs, that lived for over 1,000 years already and never even heard about players. And another significant impact was the end of Sorshana, the last surviving member of the 6 players who founded the theocracy of Slain. At that time, he was probably over 120 years old and had amassed considerable knowledge about the New World, knowledge lost with his death at the hand of the 8 kings, and now simply lacking in the theocracy of today. And the peaceful coexistence or possible cooperation between the theocracy of Slain and dragons, so users of the tier magic and the wild magic system, was something also lost due to the conquering campaigns of the 8 kings, because now the dragons feared the players and would hunt and kill them whenever they would invade the New World later. From Platinum and Deep Darkness Dragonlord, we also know that both have already killed players. In other words, the end of Sorshana also marked the end of peaceful coexistence between the dragons and the players. And if the kings had not existed, the theocracy would likely have also gained more and more influence. Sorshana, being virtually immortal, like the undead Overlord of Nazarick, could also have created massive numbers of undead, like Death Knights and Soul Eaters, providing the theocracy with an inexhaustible source of troops, and perhaps some draconic allies, if some players who showed up 500 years later would try to conquer the world due to an accident and misunderstanding. In other words, the death of Sorshana not only robbed the theocracy of the knowledge of Yggdrasil and humanity of old, of our world, from the year 2138 and all of the modern concept that this entailed, but also stripped it of essentially an easily to replenish infantry resource, often condemning them now to mere inaction. For example, the theocracy under Sorshana could have sent dozens upon dozens of Death Knights and Soul Eaters within short notice to drive out the Beastmen from the Dragon Kingdom. Instead, the theocracy now relied on human troops only, which also led them to support the Kingdom of re-estize, hoping it would become a safe haven for humanity and produce powerful rulers and heroes. And of course, the loss of the Sunlight Scripture to Einzulgon meant that it would take at least a decade to replenish this force. And the Kingdom of re-estize also turned out to be a failure. Instead of becoming a prosperous haven for humanity, where powerful warriors could be trained and educated and then sent to the front lines, instead the secure geographic location and immense wealth that the nation had led to stagnation and decay, almost resulting in a civil war. 200 years of progress were thus lost, and if the Balrog Empire under Jerknith had not worked so competently, they would also have had no other option to use this land profitably. Because without a competent Jerknith, the theocracy would never have ever considered aiding the Empire of Balrog to conquer the Kingdom of re-estize. And the fight against the so-called evil gods that the 13 heroes faced would also have been easier if Soshana had been able to contribute troops and his expertise. As a player, he would have recognized the evil gods as NPC monsters from Yggdrasil Online, and known how to best combat them. In other words, without the 8 kings, this conflict would have gone much better. And the fact that the 8 kings wiped out the entire nation and species that resisted their conquest led to the world also becoming much weaker, and therefore much less defendable, as all of these strong empires and races that thought they could win against the 8 are no longer alive or severely diminished. Ironically, this destruction of the strong significantly helped weaker species like humanity, who now had fewer enemies to survive in this otherwise extremely dangerous and likely unsurvivable world. Lastly, the reign of the 8 kings probably contributed to the spread of rare items. Not only did the 13 heroes get to choose weapons from the capital of the 8 kings, but Decem Hugin, the son of one of the players, had an entire arsenal of Yggdrasil weapons, which he power-leveled his children, or at least he tried. Thus, there are still plenty of potential loot, and extremely powerful items just waiting to be discovered and found by Einzulgon in the new world, as Decem Hugin is likely not the only descendant of one of the 8 kings. In the end, the brief reign of the 8 kings also left something not immediately visible, a significant gap, a power vacuum that was not filled until the Great Tomb of Nazarick emerged. The dragons were too weak and reproduced way too slowly, leaving out Brightness Dragonlord, of course. I mean, Draudilon is hardly his only offspring that survived many generations down his bloodline. And the loss of player support, the loss of Soshana and the theocracy, and of course their own civil war, weakens all of the different factions so much that now there was not a strong unifying force that could rally the entire continent to contain, or at least force Nazarick to negotiate, because after all that Einzulgon needed to stop this world conquest was a strong enemy that he feared. For him, in order to step up and stop this conquest that he never wanted in the first place. And that concludes the aftermath of the brief period of the 8 Kings of Greed's reign. And now it's your turn. What is your opinion on the 8 Greed Kings and their impact? Do you think we will see more of their descendants later in the story? Let me know it down in the comment section. And with that said, I say thank you very much for my Patreons for supporting this channel. Thanks for the general support and for all of the clicks and likes and views I'm receiving. And as usual, I say my special thanks to Other Daddy Other, ASK, Bad Guy Yi, Bad Burrito 316, Beezer, Ben C, Brandon D, Chrissy, Crowley0221, Sia, Crystal Prime, Dead Slime, Death is Mercy, Deathless Dragonlord, Demon Xenomorph 1987, Devin Downen, Ding Dong, Dinpep, Dragonlord Placido Saxophone, Duckwagon, Dunkler Krieger, Dystopia, Dystopia II, Enigmatic Unicorn, Feral Shivan, Guy with That Head, Hector Marino, Hoss, Huster, Jacob G, Jana B, Jason, J. Morris, Chromius, Kyle R., Lee K. Long, Legendarius, Lelouch Britannia with a Mustache, Lexus Fox, Lord Nishikian Rai, Lord Touch Me, Loverazor, Merovec, Mr. Shoes, Mr. Tweaker, Michael R., Michael Y., Nope, Oh Hell No, Normal Toad, Oh Kill, Overlord General Gaspar, Paddy Pantum, Personage, Primus 11, Rhinomere, Cune Caracos P, Shergox's Daddy, Shadow Lightning Wolf, Shrine Keeper, Sir Axolotl, Super Tier Magic Batista Bomb, Supreme Cheese, Staris, Ted, Texas Deer, The Orc Warboss, Rock Ed Smasher, T.E. Wang, Vash Hawkeye, Vegito27, Venture Fanatic, Wilhelm, Zinukai, and Sonegon. Thanks guys. Anyway, have a nice day, and I hope to see you all again soon on my next video.